Speaking of special teams, that is what Shane Beamer in South Carolina are known for with Beamer ball. They're very, very productive on special teams. And when it comes down to it, this is a South Carolina team that has a ton of expectations on it. They finished the season hot a year ago. South Carolina fans, that's who I mean, where the expectations are coming from. They are expecting that next step. Won 8 games a year ago, beat Tennessee by scoring 63 points on them at home, and then also beat their rival Clemson. Everybody says that's the separator between where Will Muschamp had this program in going into year 3 and where Shane Beamer does. Now, they have the same exact record, but everybody feels like the vibe is different based on what Shane Beamer is doing recruiting, the morale of the team, all that kind of stuff, having beaten Clemson, all of those things. Now, what we need to see out of South Carolina in this game against North Carolina on Saturday in Charlotte. This is huge for momentum for South Carolina. You have an offensive line that's been piecemealed together through the transfer portal. They've got guys that they've brought in like Sidney Fugar from Western Illinois. He's going to be replacing Jalen Nichols, who tore his knee up in the spring game, so not a whole lot of experience there. And then behind him, if it's kind of an or situation they listed on their depth chart, you have Jackson Hughes, who's from Charlotte, UNC Charlotte, so he gets to kind of go back to where he was playing before and be in this game. So either or there on that tackle situation. And then Nick Gargiulo is a guy that transferred in from Yale, so we'll see how he's able to produce here. His backup is a freshman in Marquis Anderson. Over on that right side of the line, they got a little bit more experience. Carson Henry, not a ton of necessarily game experience, but he has been in the program. He's a redshirt freshman, so he was there last year, got to learn. You got Ja'Kai Moore, who's a redshirt senior at right guard. And then, of course, their center is Vershawn Lee, who has been around for a while. So that right side of the line, a little bit more experience, got some questions over there on the left side. But I think they're going to have to be really, really good and play about as well as they possibly can in this first game to help South Carolina provide balance, okay? They need balance offensively. This offensive line needs to help Dowell Loggains provide balance to this offense. They need to help Spencer Rattler provide balance to this offense. And what do I mean by balance? I don't mean that you have to be able to split the run and pass 50-50. I mean that you need to be able to be efficient in the run game when you need to be. If it's third and 1, 3rd and 2, can you block well enough that you don't have to pass it if you need to? You can stick it up in there and get a first down, keep the chains moving. They don't have to average, 5-6 yards a carry, but they do need to be efficient on the rundowns when needed. So whatever is needed, can you get at least half of that on early downs, on first and second down, and then on third down, be able to get it across and get a new set of downs? That is what South Carolina's offensive line is going to be asked to do. You don't have to dominate, but you got to be efficient in the run game. And also, it wouldn't hurt if you trended a little bit more towards that dominant side, because you got some running backs that aren't necessarily the most proven in the world. They have DeCarrion Joyner and Juju McDowell listed on their roster as their 2 running backs for this game. Yes, they didn't even put anybody else on the depth chart. They have some guys that are, kind of fringe guys they're trying to work in. We'll see if any of them produce, but it looks like going into this one, DeCarrion Joyner and Juju McDowell are going to be the guys running the football. Listen, last year between those two, they averaged 3.7 yards per carry, only 275 rushing yards on just 74 attempts between the two. Marshawn Lloyd, Jaheim Bell carried the bulk of their rushing last year. We know Jaheim Bell is going to be playing Sunday night for Florida State, and we know that Marshawn Lloyd has already played a game with his new team in Southern Cal. So the lead of that rush attack is gone from a year ago. You need to see DeCarrion Joyner and Juju McDowell also help out that offensive line. They're going to have to make guys miss. They have the capability to be able to do that and make some plays. But, man, it is going to be incumbent that South Carolina has balance in this game, because if North Carolina's defensive front, I know North Carolina's defense is not like, the Steelers or something back in 2008. It is not an elite defense, but any defense that knows a team is going to be one-dimensional and they can just pin their ears back and try to come after Spencer Rattler, if that offensive line isn't doing its part in terms of producing enough in the run game and then also protecting Spencer Rattler, then all those weapons that South Carolina has on the edge aren't going to be as effective. And I do think that is the strength of this team for South Carolina. Juice Wells, Xavier Leggett, Amarian Brown, all these guys, even Omega Blake has had a really good fall camp by all indications for South Carolina. Nick Harbor's supposed to be healthy for South Carolina, and he's a guy that has elite speed that I think they'll throw it down the field to at least a couple times. Eddie Lewis is a guy that transferred in that they're looking to see do things. And then at tight end, you have both Trey Knox and Joshua Simon that they've liked what they've seen out of fall camp. Trey Knox could be a really, really big target for Spencer Rattler based off what we saw in the spring game. Those two already have a good rapport with one another. So do we see enough productive play out of South Carolina's offensive line to keep North Carolina honest when it comes to honoring the run? Can Juju McDowell and DeKarian Joyner produce behind that offensive line, help Dowell Loggains and help Spencer Rattler out? Because if you become one-dimensional early, it gets really, really tough. And I don't think that South Carolina wants to get in a back-and-forth shootout with a Drake May-led team in North Carolina. I think they would like to, hey, let's be able to run the ball, okay, get North Carolina on their heels, and then hit these big playmakers on the edge with some play action, hit them over the top, strike early, try to get a lead, and then make North Carolina play catch-up. Because as good as Drake May is, if South Carolina's defense knows that he's going to have to be throwing the ball every down, because they're gonna have a deficit to make up, and South Carolina's out in front, and they're having to continue to drop back and throw and try to, with these shortened clock rules, they've lost some plays already, probably 7, 8, 9, 10 plays in a game. If they're playing from behind, that puts just even more pressure on Drake May, and it could really help a talented South Carolina back end with guys like Nick Amenwari, with guys like DQ Smith back there, with guys like Marcellus Dial, really help give them opportunities to create some turnovers. And then it becomes even easier for guys like Dowell Loggains and Spencer Rattler, who I'm interested to see how that goes, the play caller quarterback relationship there for South Carolina. Obviously, that changed in the end of the season last year for South Carolina. Satterfield was not the one calling the plays there towards the end, and they started having more offensive success. So those are the keys to victory, I think, for South Carolina. Offensive line, help Dowell Loggains and Spencer Rattler provide balance. Be efficient in your run game, and then Spencer Rattler can help take care of the rest, and that will help South Carolina get a lead. Got to get up, got to get a lead, and make North Carolina be the ones that are one-dimensional, playing from behind, and force Drake May to put the ball in harm's way, maybe try to fit it in some tight windows, and that is how South Carolina can produce some turnovers. So that is a big key to this game, but it's all about the front five, that offensive line for South Carolina in this game for me.